make that choice.
Yeah.
Right there, it says I can't.
Yeah, that's the other problem.
Yeah, these cameras, oh, this, is this the weird, the room that's got the cameras?
Well, they're all.
Yeah, some of them are just looks,
Yeah, the room's narrow, so
yeah,
it's a lot
yeah.
steeper. Yes, they do have some.
Did you want to pull a chair up here? Yeah, yeah.
Including me.
Right, yeah.
I should put a pen. Let me self-edit.
Oh, the recording is running right now, so.
Yeah, I had no idea if I was in hammering, because I was running in the middle of my. No, we changed all the mics this morning, so I was surrounded by mics, we did it mic, so that I could, because I, you know, I can. That went up. see it's still there from yesterday in the middle, when you get to the middle on this side table right here.
Oh.
And we have one on the other section, so we turned it off so that they work.
I get it. Cool.
People chimed in from outside this year, so I'm assuming. Hat. Watch it.
All right, we're going to get started. My name's Deb Quintel. I am the Director of Curriculum Development for CALI. I'm all about content. And the title of this session came about because I was realizing that faculty are looking for content for their courses, and we have everything you need for a course. So then who best to quote but the wise Yoda? So let me move forward here. I'm going to speak first. My colleague Elmer Masters is going to join me, and then Steve Johnson, who is a member of CALI's Board of Directors, a lesson author, and most recently an eLangdell casebook author, is going to talk to you about his fabulous experience working with me on the eLangdell project. Mainly he's going to speak to you about how he uses his eLangdell book. But first, I had to have some fun here. So how often do you get to write 5 1/4 inch floppy? Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Well, Elmer's up next, so. So I want to show you first one of our resources. It's called, I Cannot Wander. It's being recorded. I want to show you one of our resources. They're all recording. Okay. Called Instapoll. So Instapoll is an on-the-fly tool that allows you to poll your class. So if you would all take your, whichever one of your 3.5 devices you brought with you, and log onto the internet, and then go to this website that I use CALI's URL shortener. So it's cca.li/kc. Go there, and I'll just wait a second because I know you might have to log into the Georgia State site. And then it says, do you want to create a poll or would you like to join a poll? So please join mine. And then answer this question, selecting the best choice that represents your role at your law school. And if you're puzzled by your role, then pick your dream role. It's Saturday morning. So is everyone gone there? I'm going to flip over to 3330. So here is the result.
Go back.
Oh, I'm going back. Hold on. I can do that. So these are your choices.
Well, I can change it.
Yeah, you can change your choice. You can set the Instapoll to not allow students to change their choice. But what this allows is suppose that you're having a class discussion and no one is responding, or the only person responding is Elmer, and you've heard from Elmer quite enough, thank you, today. So you want to draw some other people in, but maybe it's a sensitive case, so people are uncertain about stating their views. So you can ask a question. How many of you think the court decided this correctly? How many of you believe that this is an accurate standard? And then suddenly you also avoid the problem where I'm going to follow everything that Elmer says. Whatever Elmer votes for, I'm the person in the back of the room raising my hand the same time Elmer does. It's been a safe bet. I have no independent thought, but Elmer is getting me through law school. So
That would have been a problem.
So it's great for finding out what people are really thinking, and let's go back to our chart here. So we see now, ideally, I would have like a split screen or do something fancy where I squish this over, which I can't grab the edge, but we would see that there is nobody here, basically. Yeah, there's 0 people who claim to be a law librarian, electronic services, and or reference desk. Here, I can pull my own screen over a little better. There we go. Law librarian who teaches legal research. Wow, that's a really huge number, or that's a moderate number of people. Most people are responsible for law school technology. Teach substantive law school course. We have a number of faculty in here. Primarily administrative role, some people here, and are responsible for a combination of the above. So that's, and you can see here that this is the box that as the faculty member I would uncheck to require students to stand by their first choice. I can also clear this response, and I can ask you any other sort of questions in future PowerPoint slides during our class. So basically this 3330 Instapoll is going to last for the entire length of the time that I keep this browser window open. If I close my browser window, I lose the Instapoll. This is anonymous, so I can't go home and journal about which of you considered yourselves responsible for administrative roles or anything. So it's completely anonymous, unlike some of the other electronic course devices out there. So that is one product we have, polling your students in class. So what do you need for a typical course? Most people use some sort of collection of materials. For convenience, I shall call it a casebook today. So CALI has casebooks. This is just the first few shown on our website. Here's what's exciting about eLangdell casebooks. They're free. That means no cost, and they're licensed under a Creative Commons license, which means you can take the book and modify it any way you want, of course being responsible and giving attribution. There's a teacher's manual that is locked behind a password, so only faculty at CALI member schools have access. The book formats come in EPUB, which is used on just about every electronic device, the Kindle version, a PDF, and a Word version. And then we also have a 5th version, which is a print version, which I'll talk about in a minute. You can modify content, as I say. So let's say you're really in love with a particular casebook that you use, but you're looking for an additional chapter on something, or you're looking for new problems to add into the mix. You can borrow just that part of the book and use it in your course. CALI books are peer-reviewed. I don't know if that's happening with every casebook publisher around the country. I'm being told by faculty that is not the case. So it's peer-reviewed by someone else who teaches your substantive course. And so I have to confess, we found a number of unusual versions of cases or statements of the law that get corrected then. And CALI is happy to offer you lifetime digital access. Apparently a lot of other publishers are offering that as well. And we are also offering lifetime digital access as well as lifetime PDF and Word. I consider lifetime, frankly, for myself to be the life of the book because we're on a cycle to revise and update books, but that's just us. Here are a number of subject areas that we have. We're adding more subject areas all the time. I tried to, if you're wondering why I can't alphabetize, I tried to sort of group them according to first year and then rest of the world, with a little bit of artistic license in between, because I'm a creative person. And then we're also moving to include statutes and rules. So we're going to be putting up, after July, things like the trademark code, the Copyright Act, Lanham Act, as it's known, I guess, things like that, so that you can send your students to the CALI site for those materials. We have additional titles coming, and I actually missed a title here because it's right at that awkward point of publication. I've got another contract book that's going to go live in the next few days, along with a sales book. And so fall 2016, I'm going to have another contract, a sales book, Will's bankruptcy, and then I have a number of books coming for spring 2017 and the future. CALI is always looking for new faculty to write chapters or books. So if you have a faculty member, or you are a faculty member, and you are looking for a publisher, I would encourage you to come to CALI. The books are free, but your work is compensated for. So I mentioned that we have ebooks, the two formats, the Kindle, the EPUB. The Kindle is the Mobi, of course, EPUB, PDF, and Word, which allows your students to print it out at home because they believe that that is easier to put in a ring binder and they can carry it about in sections. If you want a paperback copy of the book, and it's actually really nicely bound, these are just some prices for comparison. So John Witt's Torts book has about 8 color photographs and charts in it. So to print it in color, it's about $41.06 plus shipping. And you might wonder why, what a goofy odd price. That's because CALI takes absolutely no profit whatsoever. And this is the absolute bottom price that the third-party vendor we use, lulu.com, will charge someone to buy a book off their site. So we get all these weird decimal points. If you just want to see the graphs and pictures in black and white, you can get an entire 722-page tort books for $12.70. None of our material is locked down, so your students can actually create a second market for themselves, reselling their books. If you start graphing out 184 pages and 722, as I have done in the airport on long delays, you will find there's a bit of a price discrepancy. It takes something to actually fire up the printing press, as best I can tell. So you can't really get a per page count, but you can get a rough estimate. So those are our books. So what else do you need for a typical course? You have your basic course material. Then you always have supplemental material, and that could be additional readings that you pull in, or a lot of folks are moving to CALI lessons. An average lesson takes about 40 minutes and includes roughly 22 questions. Questions can be very linear. The example I always use is, what's your first name, what's your last name, what's your address? Those are linear questions. Then there are branching questions. So branching questions could be, if I said to you, do you want to split a cab with me to the airport? And if you said yes or no, if you said no, I might want to go down a branch and ask, well, why not? Didn't you like me? You know, and I can go down that whole sad path. If it's yes, we probably should discuss what time our flights are leaving and things like that. But if my second question after, do you want to split a cab with me, is what's your favorite color? I've got this whole cab issue floating out there. So branching question, it's like the mini-Socratic dialogues that you have with students in class. And branching questions allow you to further explore a student's understanding of the material, the intricacies of the material, or their confusion of the material. We now have material in 40 areas of the law. All the lessons can be modified, and you can also write your own. So if you find a lesson that you like, but you don't like the last part of it, you can move it out and edit it and then publish it just for your students. We've got some really amazing features on the website now that folks have been up for a year, but folks, if they haven't visited the site recently, we have Lesson Link, which allows you to create a unique URL that you share with your students, and it reports to you what their score was, and it allows you to download all of those scores in a CSV. You can also use a feature called auto-publish, which means you write the lesson or modify a lesson and publish it up to your website, or up to CALI's website rather, but you still see the score. So this allows you to track for assessment purposes. So one of the interesting things with Lesson Link is faculty sometimes will contact me and say, students are running the lesson that I don't have in my class. I've never heard of these people. You must have put my link on the entire general CALI website. Oh my, what is going on? And what happens is students in your class that you have created a lesson link for find the materials so useful, they share the link with their colleagues in a different section. And so you're getting people basically down the hall that you have yet to meet at your own law school. So this is a list of all the areas of law that we teach in. It is really a tiny font. That's to entice you to visit the website on your own and explore it. This is a mock-up. Well, it's actually a screen grab, I guess. That would be the word. Mock-up is way too fancy for me. It's a screen grab of a course that I created that I set up for this summer. And you can see I set up a number of links. This is my plan for my course of lessons that I'm going to assign to students throughout the course. And this is the only one I've assigned to so far. So far, 2 scores have been recorded. And if I turn to the next page, I see that I spent, what was that, Sunday or something, working on CALI lessons. And I got a whopping 33% on my first effort through the lesson. And then I did a little bit better, 100%. But if you look closely at these numbers, I did 100%, but you can see I only answered 5 questions on my second try. So the numbers, obviously, you need to look beyond the percent. If I were to click on the individual percent number for each of the students on a live screen, it would show you exactly which question they answered right and exactly which question they answered wrong. That's very useful if students come into your office. They want to have office hours and talk with you about the lesson, and you want to go through and see where they're having a misunderstanding. You can also pull all this data out into a spreadsheet and then sort it in amazing, exciting ways using spreadsheet functions to see where the students are having problems or where you need to circle back. So one of the things that we're all talking about is assessment, formative assessment. The purpose, of course, is to guide you as the instructor to see where you need to circle back or cover material again, and then tell students what he doesn't know. Obviously, I had a life-affirming moment when I saw my 33% as a score. It's like, oh, well, maybe I need to work on my reading skills. Maybe I need to review the book. Maybe I need to talk to the professor, things like that. As our keynote speaker yesterday said, formative assessment is your GPS. So in our typical course, we have some sort of collection of materials. We have supplemental materials. We have maybe in-class polling, which was Instapoll that we saw at the beginning. You can find Instapoll by going to the CALI website, going to Explore, and then finding Instapoll. It will not have that giant blue arrow, although I am happy to do a webinar with you and point to the screen. Actually, I'm happy to do a webinar with any of you at any time about CALI resources. I have a rule that I've picked up from using with authors over the years, and I call it my 5-minute rule, and that is if you have spent 5 minutes looking at anything on the CALI website or anything in the software or any lesson, and you are bewitched, bothered, and bewildered, please telephone or email me and ask me to assist you, because chances are I have been through this puzzle with another faculty member. So finally we get to what's the last thing that you might want to do in the class. And that might be blogging or podcasting. And that's our Classcaster project, which Elmer is going to speak about. I just want to mention that it's your content, and you can post just an amazing, I think your imagination is probably the limit to what you can post up there. And I want to just tell you that you can build a course with all of these resources. So you can use in-class Instapoll, you can use Classcaster or lessons to create a flipped classroom situation, have students work on a lesson in place of the lecture that you might give, and then come in and work on, experiential learning problems in the class. And you can actually move around the class having students work on different aspects. So I just want to remind you that formative and summative assessment are two different things, as we all know, and the goal of formative assessment is to monitor student learning. And we're all being encouraged to do that more in the class, and CALI lessons are a great opportunity to do that. There's one more thing that I want to talk about, and that's the A to J and experiential learning. So A to J project, A to J Author is a software tool that CALI has that's used primarily in the legal aid community to create what are called guided interviews. So think of this, think of any, if you ever worked in legal aid, the intake form that you have, or if you've ever filled out a government document that requires you to list your name and address and any sort of data like that. Even that INS-9 form that we all fill out to hire someone. Imagine pro se or self-representing litigants coming in and trying to fill those out in court, or in the courthouse, for example. Changing their name is a popular activity. So the guided interview takes the information that's needed on the ultimate form and collects it in a question-answer sort of way with students. So there are a number of faculty members who have been working with CALI the past few years, and CALI works on this project jointly with Chicago-Kent College of Law, to create guided interviews that are used by legal aid clinics around the country. So A to J and CALI are now doing a project matching, where if you have a course that you want to run to do a guided interview, but you don't have a legal aid organization that you have access to, so to speak, there are legal aid organizations who have forms that need filling out. So this is a great way to have students delve behind what's really behind the law. Opposite my session right now, Alex Rabinall is talking with two of the fellows from the A to J project, and I would encourage you all to go and look at that webinar Saturday evening. Pop some popcorn, just put it up on the big screen. It's worth it. And the project that they tackled was the Human Rights Commission in Tennessee has a form that you need to fill out to indicate whether or not you believe you have been discriminated against somehow. And the form is remarkably complex and asks you questions such as, have you been retaliated against? Well, that's often a question that is difficult for a self-representing litigant to answer. So they have taken all these complex concepts, broken them down, and then the end result is the form. So I would encourage you to look at the A to J project if you're looking for experiential learning projects for your class, whether it be a contract form that your students, a template of a contract form your students fill out for a sale or a lease, or anything. And we're also working on a course kit that should come out in late summer, early fall sort of thing, that tells you exactly what you need to do to create a course on your own. And I believe that is the end. Thank you very much, and I'm going to ask Elmer to come up. Or stay where you are?
No, I'm coming up.
Okay.
All right, let's see what happens. So I'm going to talk about Classcaster, which is our blogging and podcasting network. Okay, and just give me 1 second. Ooh. This is work. So I'm going to talk about things to do with Classcaster. I'm Elmer Masters, the Director of Technology for CALI, and I'm the one to blame for the agenda if there were any issues with like I heard somebody say, one of the speakers was overheard saying, I have to go back and watch because there were the other 3 sessions were all things I wanted to see. So hopefully everybody will go back and look at the video because everything will be coming up. So what I'm going to talk about in terms of Classcaster, we're just going to hit a few points about creating a blog, using it to interact with your students, getting your syllabus up there, getting materials up there, getting your CALI lessons in there, podcasting, and then organizing your site. It's not going to be a demo. I'm just going to talk about it because you get into demos and then it all kind of gets a little sideways sometimes. But if you have any questions, definitely raise your hand and ask. And I'm always available by email, especially. Is actually the easiest way to get a hold of me, or a phone to talk about Classcaster, because as you know, some people know I love to talk about it, so always around. So the first thing is creating a blog on Classcaster. Classcaster is now 10 years old. I forget if I mentioned that, but it's hard. Yeah, it's been around since 2006. So, and actually the original development started in 2005, so it's really more than, but at this conference 6 years ago, I was doing the first, here's how to do Classcaster sort of thing. So it's still there. It's at www.classcaster.net, and you have to go there, you log in with your CALI account, and then you click on the big create a blog here button, and then fill out the form, and you get a blog. And it's really, pretty straightforward. And then once you get in there, once you've created the blog, of course, it's, you're presented with 1,000 sort of options. But, mostly you can just sort of dive in and start blogging. There is when you first get in, you'll see a link for videos. That's actually a series of sort of how-to videos. They're short, like a minute, on how to do a post, how to set up categories, how to set up menuing, that kind of stuff. And so there are a bunch of videos. It's part of a subscription service that we have with a company that does a lot of WordPress stuff, and they keep them up to date with the versions of WordPress and those sorts of things. So there's a little bit of video help that's there. So you can create a blog. And then one of the things that we've never really seen anybody do, although people keep threatening to do it, is actually use the Classcaster blog to interact with their students. There's actually a theme for WordPress called P2, which is available on Classcaster, that sort of sets up the front. It almost makes the front page of your blog look like the news feed in Facebook, right? So you can get your students on, registered on the blog, and then they can go in and create posts. They can actually do status updates, or they can do comments, or they can post more, longer pieces, or whatever they want to do, and whatever you would like them to do. And then that sort of fills an activity list that works down the home page of the blog, and it can actually update in real time. I've used it in the past for sort of live blogging kinds of things. But that works out pretty good too. And there's a link in the notes. I'm gonna this will be the slides will be attached to the session page later today, and you'll be able to get at these links. And then you just have to figure out how to get them to actually post to it. But I'll leave that up to y'all. So because that's always a thing. You can post your syllabus on Classcaster, right? So how many faculty and folks that are teaching in the room are using Word to create your syllabus? Yeah, I know Patrick's folding his hands even tighter now, because I know he doesn't, but that's fine. You can actually post directly from Word, from starting with version Word 2010 all the way through Word 2013, which I think is that the latest one, or is there a newer one on? Whatever. Yeah, there's a button in there somewhere for post to a blog, and you can actually set that. You can actually configure that to post directly to Classcaster. So if you've done your syllabus in in Word, it's a matter of just hitting a button and doing a little bit of configuration. You have to put in your account information and stuff, and then it'll post that directly to your blog as a blog post or a page right on the blog. And we actually have a handy little, there's a little help set of screens for that in help.classcaster.net with screenshots and everything. I did it, although I looked at it, and it's actually 6 years old now, but it seems like only yesterday. So that'll allow you to sort, and you can do that with any Word documents, right? So if you're typing up anything else in Word and you want to post it directly to Classcaster, you can do that. And then there's assignments, right? So again, if you're writing up hypotheticals for your students or short exercises that you might distribute via Word doc or PDF, you can just post that Word doc to your blog. And one of the features that Classcaster has, as does all WordPress, is the ability to schedule postings. So you could post an assignment that's, say, hypothetical, and you want the students to respond or be prepared to discuss it in class, but you don't want it to turn up until a given day when you're ready to talk about it. So you don't want them to kind of get a head start on it, or you want to make sure that they've been exposed to some material before. But you can set that up and set the time and date that you want it to show up on the blog. And of course, if you get behind, because I know that happens, you can go in and change the date so it doesn't sort of sneak up on you. But that's and that works really well. I use that with sometimes when I write a post during the middle of the workday, and I schedule it to turn up later that evening so John doesn't think I'm vlogging when I'm supposed to be working. But that's okay. That's just between me and you. Yeah. So you can also assign CALI lessons, right? Deb mentioned lesson link. One of the things that happens when you use lesson link is you'll actually see a little there's a little code on the end of the information that comes with on the lesson link page for the faculty. It's a column called Lesson View, and that gives you like a little short code you can drop right into a WordPress, into Classcaster, into the Classcaster blog post that will embed the information about the lesson into the post, and then the link to run the lesson. Students still need to log into the CALI website in order to actually run the lesson. But then you'll be able, if you use Lesson Link to do that, you'll be able to get the information from the runs, as Deb talked about. I'm hoping to make that, instead of something that you have to copy and paste, more of a button, so that if you already have a Classcaster blog, you'll be able to click on it and automatically put it into the blog. So, and of course, for those of you who've been around this long, Classcaster was originally built for podcasting. Still used for podcasting by a number of people. So it's very media friendly, so it can host recordings, both audio and video. There are players available. Actually, the handling of media has actually gotten better. And you can still do interesting things, like there's a special phone number that you can dial, and you can record a podcast, and it'll post automatically to your blog as a draft. You still have to go in and actually hit the publish button. So that allows you to go in and add other material and listen to it once and decide that maybe maybe you need to make some changes. But the whole thing, the whole platform is pretty media friendly. Folks use it for class recordings. They do interviews. They'll do guest speakers. and that kind of thing. Again, I'm waiting for somebody to actually use it, get their students involved, but that's, maybe someday. But I don't know, my kids are, my daughter just finished her first year of college, and she's at Georgia Tech, but she still managed to make 3 movies last year. She had to turn in 3 videos for different classes. I think students are getting a lot more, they're using a lot more sort of media kinds of tools. And so, it couldn't hurt law school sometimes, possibly, to get that. Finally, you can organize your stuff, right? So Classcaster has a number of tools that allow you to, use menus and widgets and pages to organize the material that you have. And if you combine that with like the timed publishing things, you can sort of, have an active site that, that will require your students to keep an eye on it. So there's a bunch of features there. That's all I have about Classcaster. Questions? If not, we're turning it over to Steve Johnson. Let's see you on two. Thank you.
Oh, let me, can you find your PowerPoint?
Hope so.
You might have this. It looks useful, the middle one.
Yeah, in the middle one. Yeah, let's go ahead and start it. Okay, hey, thanks for being here on actually, I'm sorry. Stay here.
Actually, those two are live too.
Oh, those two are alive too? So I can move a little bit. Okay, as Deb mentioned, I'm Steve Johnson. I teach environmental law and administrative law down at Mercer Law School, about 75 miles down the road. I'm here today to talk about a book, but hopefully not just a book, hopefully a new way of thinking about our law books. As Deb mentioned, I'm on the CALI board and a part of the group that reviews the eLangdell proposals. Because of that, I've sort of been trying to keep an eye on what publishers are doing with ebooks, and I've thought we can do more. Or I guess in homage to Deb's title, do more we can. So I thought we can transform the casebook. So what I'm talking about today is a course source. What I did is I decided to write a new type of casebook that's going to take advantage of technology in ways that other casebooks haven't, hopefully. I did it not so much because I thought there were going to be a lot of people using my particular course book. The topic is fairly narrow, wetlands law. There are only a couple courses, seminars around the country that focus on wetlands law, but the book can be used as a supplement in other environmental law courses and water law courses, and it's free, so faculty can adopt it for the students without having the student pay anything extra for it. It's got chapters in it that focus on administrative law that can be taken out and used in a separate course on health law or patent law, labor law, because the chapter is just a basic introduction to administrative law. It's got a chapter on takings that can be used in a property or land use course. Well, if I didn't think a lot of folks were going to be using this particular book, I wrote it because I'm hoping that folks will look at it as a model and think about doing things a little bit different. I want folks to look at it and say, I can do that. I actually want folks to look at it and say, I can do better than that. So what... And that's my wife, so, with the phone. Okay, so casebooks have evolved as teaching methods have evolved. Louis Sullivan, great American architect, said, form ever follows function. So just as a building should be designed to carry out the purposes for that building, course materials should be designed with a purpose to facilitate the new type of teaching that faculty are doing, or that we hope faculty are moving towards, right? First casebooks back in the 1800s, case method of teaching was predominant, right? So in the casebook, you had cases. Over time, you added some statutes, regulations, law review article excerpts, but it's primarily that format. Over time, teaching changed. We had the introduction of problem-based books. Hypotheticals and problems were added. Books probably better called course books instead of just case books at this point. And then teaching methods have continued to evolve, right? 1990s, you had the McCrate Report. 2000, you had the Carnegie Foundation Report, 2007. Faculty and book publishers reacted to that, right? You had new books coming out for those teaching methods. Separate books on skills development that would supplement the books that you normally use in your class. Law stories books, right, to give you lots of information about a particular case or a couple cases to enrich the student's experience with the case. So you had all these different books coming out. Okay, now technology gives us the opportunity to take what's happening in all those other areas and bring it all together. We can transform our casebooks and our course books so that faculty would be able to take advantage of all of that in their teaching and change their teaching. Most of the early ebooks that came out were basically just electronic versions of the casebook that somebody had already written, right? Or they take a couple links and add them to the casebook that they already written. But there wasn't anything truly unusual or different about them. So based on that, I kept thinking as we're reviewing the proposals, we can do more, right? So with technology, we've moved now, hopefully, from the casebook to the course book to the course source. I called the wetlands book that I wrote a course source, and as a term used in other areas of education as well. The course source is a one-stop shop for faculty for all of their teaching resource needs. So think casebook, course book, problems, your law stories, your everything all rolled in one. Now, if you want to follow along, if you go to the CALI website and you go to ebooks, if you click on the ebooks, you scroll down. Actually, you don't have to scroll down. For the time being, because it's the most recent book, it's the top book up there on the list. So it won't be that after next week. But if you click on that book, as Deb told you, it's available in many different formats, PDF, Word, iPad, Kindle, etc. I'm going to be mentioning a couple different things in the book, so if you want to download the book in whatever format you want, you can go ahead and do that now. And I want to thank Deb, because every one of these formats, when I look at it, they all look great, no matter which format I look at it. And so she did a wonderful job with that. Even as I contacted her midway through the process and let her know that EPA had changed about 50 links that I had included in there, and so she had to change those towards the end of the production process. So if you want to download that as we walk through it, that might be helpful as I point to some of the things in it. So let me come back to the slide here. So what is in the course source? Okay, Carnegie Foundation. Educating lawyers for preparation for the profession of law. In that study, they stressed the importance of the 3 apprenticeships in formation of a lawyer. They stressed that lawyers and law schools should be taught knowledge, skills, and values necessary to the legal profession. Now, course source is going to include materials for all of those knowledge, skills, and values. They're interconnected. You're not just going to be teaching research in a research class, ethics in a legal ethics class. It's all got to be in the class that you're teaching. So the materials ideally should all be in one place instead of a skills book here, an ethics problems book over here, a law stories book. So it should be all together. So in the wetlands book, I try to include all of that. So for knowledge, okay, for the knowledge apprenticeship, the course book, the course source includes things you normally would think of in your old case books, right? If you turn to page 111 in the PDF version or 369 in the EPUB, you're going to see what looks like a very traditional case. And then there'll be some comments and notes afterwards. It looks like your old-fashioned case book. Okay, so you got that. Like the problem books, there are many hypotheticals and problems scattered throughout the book. If you go to page 32 of the PDF, it has a list of all the problems and exercises in the book. Or if you want to see one of the problems itself, page 182 of the PDF or 636 of the EPUB will give you a picture of one of those problems in the book. Okay, so we got knowledge, skills. Okay, this is where it moves away a little bit from the more traditional case books. There is a core of material in the book that you can't access offline. I wanted to make sure that if you didn't have internet access, that you would still be able to use this book. It can live even without internet access. But there is a lot in here that you can take advantage of and get more out of if you do have internet access, especially the research exercises. So for instance, in the research exercises, 11 chapters, I've got 16 different research exercises in there, most of them which require access to databases or government websites to find the material that I'm asking you to find in the research problems. And there's a range of research problems, some very mundane, finding the contact information for the local Corps of Engineers office. Others more complex, finding appellate decisions by the agency, finding conditions in a general permit, finding guidance documents. So research exercises. Drafting exercises, and research exercises, again, page 58 of the PDF, you got one. Drafting exercises. Draft a Freedom of Information Act request. Draft a citizen suit complaint and a 60-day notice letter. So page 406 in the PDF, 1495 in EPUB, you can find those. Interviewing and counseling exercise. I ask them to draft questions for an interview with a client who wants to sue because they think that the government's decision to deny their permit was a taking. So I ask the students, what sort of questions would you ask this client to prepare to decide how you're going to represent them and if you should sue or not. So skills, okay, knowledge, skills, values, okay. 4 professionalism problems scattered throughout the book with links to the model rules and links to the comments to the model rules which are posted online. So there'll be different sections in there where you'll give a little scenario where you have to decide, client comes to you with questions in a specialized area of the law where you don't have a lot of expertise. What is your role as an attorney? What should you do in that situation? So on page 77 you got an example of that. In the book currently, what's in there are some scripted dialogues, okay? I'm working on getting some students and folks as actors so we can actually film a video of those dialogues and put that linked there as well. But again, I want to make sure that we have offline and online access. So the scripts will still be in there, so you don't have to view them online. You can view the scripts. What else? In a course source, obviously, in addition to knowledge, skills, values, the Carnegie focus, big focus, as everyone said for years now, on assessment, right? ABA standards, assessment of student learning. You have to have formative and summative assessment methods in your curriculum. So that's in here, right? Not only can you use the skills and professionalism exercises as formative or summative assessment tools, but for every chapter in the book, and sometimes more than once for a chapter, I wrote CALI exercises that are in the chapters as quizzes for the material covered in the chapter. And at other points in the book, I linked to other CALI exercises that are relevant to the material that I didn't author, but were helpful for the students to address the material in the book. So what else? Okay, because it can access a lot of material online, I wanted to take advantage of that. You know, law stories, right? How do you tell a story to show the students what's really going on in the cases and the disputes? You can do it in the book, like the good law stories books, but there's also a lot of good material out there online that you can put into the course source here, right? So in the book that I wrote, 400 pages, there are about 1,000 links in the book. I know what you're all thinking, and I'm thinking that too. So what's in there? Videos, right? For the book, I went out and interviewed several different lawyers that do wetlands law. A lawyer that represents communities, a public interest lawyer, a DOJ lawyer, a lawyer with the Environmental Council of States that represents state agencies. And so I took those interviews and I chunked them up into small, nice, digestible pieces, posted them on YouTube, and then at appropriate points in the book, we'll have links from the material that they're covering to those YouTube videos. So for instance, the book involves some information about cases involving mountaintop removal mining and wetlands. And so there's a professor up at West Virginia Law School, Pat McGinley, who's represented a lot of communities in Appalachia that have dealt with issues created by mountaintop removal mining. And so the stories that he can tell about those communities and how the people in those communities are impacted by the removal mining show the students that this is not just words on a page, that the law is about people. And then Jan Goldman Carter, an attorney with the National Wildlife Federation. She's worked with them for decades. So I sat down and chatted with her about things like, well, how do you decide what cases to bring when you've got limited resources and you're representing a public interest advocacy group? And so I took little chunks of that interview and put it linked to sections in the book that talk about citizen enforcement actions. So videos, mountaintop removal mining. Beautiful videos online showing mountaintop removal mining in action so students can watch the mountains get blown up and get a better sense of what's going on in those communities, right? So what else is in there? Google Map, right? If you look at page 30 on the book, on the PDF, you'll see the Google Map. What I did is I took all of the cases, the principal cases in the book, and I created a Google map for those cases so that the students could zoom in to see for the cases where the wetlands survived, what they look like today, and for the cases where the wetlands didn't, what's there now. And it's helpful to give students a sense of place and the disputes in the cases, right? There's a case, Solid Waste Agency of Northern Cook County, that you'll see a link for there involving isolated waters and isolated wetlands and whether they should be regulated or not. Students, when they look at those waters, can get a better sense of, well, what is an isolated water? And oh, there's the Fox River right over here. It's not really that far, but we're calling it isolated. And what other development is going on around here? Should we be protecting these wetlands or not? So again, gives them a sense of place, right? So the Google Maps in there. Then for each of the principal cases, I tried to include some other links that try to bring the case to life, right? Audio for the oral arguments for the principal cases, the underlying decision documents, articles from the local media about the case that was going on. In addition to the edited versions of the cases, I've also linked all the cases to Justia or other free, unedited versions of the cases. So if faculty want to change around the cases, they can grab those cases and play with them as they like. So I do that for each case of the principal cases. Then in addition, in each chapter towards the end, or the end of a section, I'll have another resource section where it's links to government reports, databases, government documents. So page 180 of the PDF will give you an example of that. And then pictures, right? Picture tells 1,000 words, right? So students in my class, environmental law, we read these cases about deep ripping or side casting and bottomland hardwood wetlands and prairie potholes. And it's like, well, what's the difference between those? And what's deep ripping? And the pictures show them, right? They can look at the picture and then they get a better sense of what's really going on here, right? And the pictures were all free. There's so much, as folks have already told you in all the other sessions, right? There's so much out there in Wikimedia Commons and on government sites that isn't necessarily copyrighted, and other sites out there that have free sources. So other than the cover art, by my daughter. Everything else in the book was drawn from those free sources, and they can be used Creative Commons format, right? Which is another feature of the course, right? Creative Commons. So faculty can pick and choose the portions of the materials they find most useful and relevant, change them, and then provide them to their students for free. And like all eLangdell books, it's available even for folks who are not CALI members. And then finally, for the course source, the other thing that I have is all of the materials. Where did it go? Yeah, all of the materials are also repurposed as an online library of materials on wetlands. So and they're organized by different topics here. So if faculty want to just search through there to find the library of cases and build their own book, or find the different materials on 404 permitting, or newsletters related to the topic, they can go there and you've got an online library of the materials that are underlying the whole book. So that, in a nutshell, is, as I said, my vision here for a course source. Again, I also wrote a little article about the course source that you can access either online at SSRN or later on this summer in Capital University's Law Review. But as I said, mostly I'm here to try and find authors. I'm here as a recruiter. I'm here to try and tell folks, hey, we can do more with the platform. And I want folks to do better than this, right? I don't want folks to look at this and say, oh, okay, I can do that. Do better than this, okay? So, thank you.
I will say, Steve did send me a very long Word doc when I was pretty far along in the process of working with this book with these new links, and it was great to get it then, actually, because I was able to quickly go through and change the links so that we had the most up-to-date version. And that is one of the nice features of our publishing model. I literally was 2 clicks away from pushing a book onto the website, and the author sent me an email, a different book, not Steve's. The author sent an email and said, oh, there were some changes I wanted to make. How are you doing on that? I said, sure, what would you like to change? And so we backed up into the process and changed the book. So the book can be repurposed. Our tax books, or re-updated rather. Our tax books are updated every December in the final weeks, just as Congress announces everything. The authors are standing by, ready to make the changes. And we get those made sometime in the last week of the calendar year always. So the process is very, very, very quick. Are there any questions for Steve, Elmer, or myself on this grand adventure of using CALI materials? How many of you use ebooks or CALI books, CALI eLangdell books? We've got 30,000 books downloading a year. So no peer pressure, but how many of you use lessons in your materials? Right. Anyone use Instapoll? Excellent. Classcaster? Excellent. How many of you like breaks at the conference? Okay. All right. Well, thank you all very much. Can I eject your USB? If you go back, our website.
Yeah, on your website, and then go up. Sorry, right at the bottom where there's the link to.
More soliciting.
Sorry, it's right at the end of that.
This one? Oh, okay. All right, that is Steve's link he gave me, so I gotta fix that. Steve, we have a broken link on our bio page for you.
Oh, you know what, there's something weird at the end of that. Like, click on that again. Yeah, see that little thing in the end? So go up in there.
I'll let you.
Yeah, there's a space at the end that shouldn't be there that's getting picked up in the URL. So it's actually a really, really simple, because that should work, right? Yeah,
I don't
okay.
have my login to the
So-
website code.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll fix that. Yes, that's just a blank space where there shouldn't be. You can't see it here,
Okay.
but it's almost certainly, it's probably inside the, like, where you put the parentheses,
brackets,
or
yeah.
where you put quote, where you put quote somewhere, but there's a space in there. That's
It's in
what
the
that.
href tags.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
you're telling me.
yeah.
I'll
So
go-
yeah, because that's
I'll
what
log
that.
in.
Whenever you see that like %20 thing, that's actually an ASCII code for a space.
Okay, I will, yeah. I'll get that fixed.
Can I close yours too, or no?
Yeah,
Because I couldn't tell which was the E and which was the F drive, because I was...
no, absolutely.
Oh, that's smart. Oh, thank you.
Something
That's,
comes up on screen that I.
that you didn't want to see. Yeah, we have something similar at our school that you can do to hide that. Since,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, not as
It's gonna be one of the two that bounces speed. A couple notches.
I wouldn't do it, you can override that.
No, literally, the guy said speed is speed.
You make the top book optical on the next and the other ones are together. That's why. Visually, there's something attractive. Rather than the other thought I had, because at first I was confused by Steve, is, do you think it would make sense to use real PDF pagination? Because it's really confusing. He says, like page 200, but he means the PDF page rather than what's printed on the bottom of the document. And the document itself has traditional pagination with no page number assigned to the cover, and then you start like Roman numeral I, double I, triple I. Thought about that.
So there's two sequences of, there's one defined.
But it depends upon what comes up on your
I wonder if she got credit, I wonder if she got permission for that.
That guy, John,
Did you really want to?
that guy was telling you about John, is an intellectual property. So he uses a lot of stuff like that, but he knows just enough. Right, he knows just exactly what he can do.
Knows when to stop.
South Carolina.
Right, so,
That's not your fault.
You have to tell people what section.
No, I got my
yes, right, exactly. So, like the idea that the three.
So I'm
Oh,
right
hi,
at the
Peter.
Delaware
Different
primary,
Yeah.
secondary
Right,
resources.
I recognize you from your 1-inch photo.
Yes, right, yes. So thank you for the comments, I'm working on it.